What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Perils in Paradise is just a week away, and so far, 6 of the 11 classes have been revealed. Today, we are going to talk about those 6 classes, and once the final 5 class cards are revealed, we'll talk about those as well. And following that, I'll have a video covering a deck list for all 11 classes in Hearthstone. First off, I want to explain how the tourist mechanic works. Every class has a class legendary that is a tourist. So for instance, you're looking at the screen right now, you see Buttons. He is a Death Knight card, but he is a Shaman tourist. If you play the tourist card in your deck, you get access to the other classes' Perils in Paradise cards aside from their tourist. So Death Knight gets access to Shaman, and you can see on the left side of the screen, Paladin gets access to Rogue gets access to Warlock, Warlock gets access to Death Knight, so on and so forth. So I want you to keep that in mind. Remember, every class has 10 class cards from the expansion, as well as a ton of neutral cards. The 10 cards from your expansion plus the 9 cards from a class gives you 19 unique class cards that you can kind of build with now in the future decks. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. I'm going to be pretty quick about assessing these cards. I'll talk briefly about some synergies that I think are really cool, but just in an effort to keep this video relatively short, I won't do too much of that. Also, I won't rate tourist cards based on the ability to play other class cards, because obviously, regardless of the class, that'll be strong, okay? But for now, I will just rate it based on its other effects that it has. So let's start with the Death Knight class. It has access to Shaman cards if you play Buttons, a 5-mana 5/5 undead with a battle cry, draw, spell of each school. Pretty vanilla body, but this ability is pretty strong. Remember, right now, Death Knight has access to Frost spells and Shadow spells. You have things like Threads of Despair, Frost Strike, Northern Navigation, any number of cards that would be useful to draw. Now, so will this card see play? It definitely should see play. I mean, it's a decent body that draws you 2 cards, and there's the upside of accessing a list of Shaman cards that may prove to be beneficial for the class. And it has a pretty cool signature, as you can see here. I would rate this relatively strong for as far as tourist card abilities go. So I'd say a 3 out of 5. Eliza Goreblade is a 4-mana 4/5 undead pirate, legendary. But the problem here is you're kind of locked into a Frost and Blood rune choice here. So might be good in Rainbow, but this effect I think is relatively weak. Death Rattle for the rest of the game. Your minions have +1 attack. +1 attack is notably strong, right? Like, I think this will help your hero power. This might see stronger play as the game goes on, and it's a Death Rattle. So if you're able to activate Death Rattles with like Yelling Yodeler or another card that we'll see later in the game, that might leave a lasting impact. Is that impact strong enough to make a deck? I'm not sure. I'll say 3 out of 5 for this card. For Frostbitten Freebooter, 3-mana 2/2 undead pirate, Death Rattle, freeze 3 random enemies. Any that were already frozen take 5 damage instead. You are going to see that there are quite a bit of freeze effects in the deck, and that is the only reason why I think that this card is going to see play. It's a 2 out of 5 in my book, but as you'll see, there are a ton of freeze effects to actually make use of this ability, albeit it's a Death Rattle, okay? Slippery Slope, this is one of those freeze spells, and you can see it's a double Frost rune. Freeze a character, draw a card for each frozen character. So if you play the Freebooter on turn 3, maybe force the trade, froze a bunch of characters, you're going to be able to play 2-mana, draw 3, or even better. I think that it's pretty interesting. Maybe we'll see if it's pretty strong. I don't know. Remember, there are other freeze effects that you have access to. You have Quartzite Crusher. You know, you have a number of ways. Glacial Shard. Like there are ways to kind of play benefit off of this ability. But for now, I'll give it just a neutral 3 out of 5. Horizon's Edge, this is the Death Knight legendary from Perils in Paradise. Each class has a Death Knight location. Each class has a new location. This one is 5 durability, 4 mana to cast, deal 3 damage randomly split among all enemies, and after a friendly minion dies, it reopens it. So unlike before when you're only able to use the location once every other turn, this time you can use it as many times as you can reopen it. So, you know, with hero power or rush minions or Reska or the chained giant thing, there are ways to kind of boost this extra damage, and it's meaningful, right? This is potentially 15 damage. I would say this location is one of the better ones, and I would give it 4 stars out of 5. Snow Shredder, undead, 4 minion, or 4/4 minion for 4, costs 1 if a character is frozen. There are quite a few freeze effects. Glacial Sword, that minion that we were talking about earlier, Quartzite Crusher. This might be kind of powerful. You see here Chiropractor, which is another freezing card that you'll have access to. So I think this is actually pretty good. So depending on how active you can get it, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Brittlebone Buccaneer, 2 mana, 1/4 undead pirate. Whenever you play a Death Rattle minion, give it reborn. And you can see that we've had a few Death Rattles here, and this is a relatively cheap activator for those Death Rattles. Now, this is a decent card for one of 2 reasons. In late game, it provides value, because assuming that you are playing the Death Rattle cards, you're going to be able to have to find that cheap activator to give reborn and get more value in hand. That's pretty decent. In the early game, this is just, it's a pseudo taunt, right? This is, you cannot leave this on the board on turn 2. And it's, while the stats are good, its defense is above average, and in the early game, that really does matter. 4 health minions for 2 drops traditionally are relatively strong, and I don't think that this will be any surprise, any different from those. I believe this is a 5 out of 5 card, 5 stars. Ghost Knight, summon 5/1/1 ghosts that attack random enemies for 4, so this can attack the opponent's hero, and these don't die at the end of the turn. That said, I think this is relatively weak. I'll give it a 1 out of 5. Corpsicle, deal 3 damage, spend 3 corpses to return this to your hand at the end of the turn, and it is Frost. So now you can draw this with buttons. It's a Frost spell. You can draw with Northern Navigation. It's got this cool signature, and I'm hoping that is a free signature that we can get. And it's a Rainbow Activator. So you spend 3 corpses. This helps buff up your CNE. And I like this. This is a really strong card because it's a recursive damage. This is very similar to a card in Magic called Scroll Rack. I mean, obviously it's different kind of game, but that type of reliable recursive damage can pay off. I give this card 5 stars out of 5. It's going to be very strong. And lastly, we have the Dreadhound Handler, a 2 mana, 2/2 undead pirate. Rush, Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Dreadhound with Reborn. So you're getting the 3/3 worth of stats. Actually 4/4, right? Because the Dreadhound can also come back to life. So it's very similar to something like Mining Casualties. And Rush gives this Death Rattle minion much more mileage. Death Rattle, the problem with Death Rattle is, unlike Battlecry gives a tempo and bonus effect in play at the cost of weaker body. Death Rattle, the bodies are usually a little better, and the effects obviously are slightly stronger, but you cannot really activate them. But here, because you have Rush on this minion, that becomes relatively strong. I think this does see play in a ton of decks. It's very good. I mean, it's a corpse generator, it fights for the board, and it's undead and a pirate. Pretty decent card. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. So that is Death Knight in a nutshell, just trying to be as quick as possible. Remember, it also has access to Shaman cards, so I think it is fair that we just jump through and look at Shaman first, right? So here's Shaman. This is the Shaman Tourist, and it's a Demon Hunter Tourist. So Shaman gets access to Demon Hunter cards from the expansions, which we have yet to see. So we'll have to cover Demon Hunter in another video. But you can see here, Carefree Cookie, Murloc Pirate, 3 for a 2/2, undercost minion, but after a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion that costs 1 more. Absolutely insane, bonkers card with the amazing signature art. 5 out of 5 stars for this card. This is a broken card, and maybe they don't find the ways to kind of like make a tier 1 deck with it now, but mark my words, this will be a very competitive and viable deck in the near future. I think one of the decks I showcase for Shaman will definitely be a Carefree Cookie deck. We don't know what the Demon Hunter cards are, but assuming there are Nagas and some other spells, that might be interesting, very interesting. Caress Cabaret Star, 5 mana, 5/5 Naga. While in your hand, play 2 different spell schools to transform. So what happens is if you play these two different cards, two different spell schools in your hand, you can change it to these different versions of Caress the Cabaret Star. Now, so the spell schools, there are 6 of them. Well, 7 of them. There's Arcane, Fire, Frost, Nature, Holy, Shadow, and Cell. Shaman has access right off the bat to Fire, Frost, Nature, and Shadow. With the Demon Hunter Tourist, you're going to get access to Fel. And, I don't know how you get Holy or Arcane, but there's got to be a way. I think this card is going to be very, very strong. It's a 5/5. I don't know if Spell School Shaman has enough cards for a full archetype, but I can definitely see a slower mid-range or control deck playing a card like this and succeeding very well. I'm going to give this 5 out of 5 stars. I think this is a very, very powerful card. Razzle Dazzler, a 7 mana 4/4 Naga, so very understated body. But remember here, battle cry, summon a random 5-cost minion. Repeat for each spell school you've cast this game. So we saw Cabaret, with the reliance on spell schools. So if you play one spell school, you're going to get 2 5-cost minions. If you play 2, you're getting 3. So the benchmark for value in that, I would say, is just one spell school. So you get 3 minions. I think that's relatively strong, especially since this is just an epic. Sure, there is the level of RNG. Maybe you get left with a really weird battle cry minion. But I think this is going to be a lot stronger than people think. Very good card. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. Natural Talent, 3 mana nature spell. Get a random Naga and a random spell. They cost 1 less. I think that's pretty cool because remember, you're discounting 2 spells. However, it is random. I don't know. I'll give this 2 out of 5 without talking too deeply into this analytics of it. Cabaret Headliner, 4 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, reduce the cost of a spell of each school in your hand by 2. That is absurd, especially if you're tweaking and fine-tuning your deck so that the spell schools cards are identified and very particular. This is going to be very strong. It's a 5 out of 5 star card. It's going to be playable in Nature Shaman. It's going to be playable in whatever this Naga Cabaret Shaman becomes. I think it is a strong card. Do not underestimate this. It is very, very good. 5 out of 5. Frosty Decor, summon 2/4 elementals with Taunt and Death Rattle, gain 4 armor. It is a frost card that I think this is relatively weak, and I don't even think that DK will see this as powerful. Remember, DK has access to Shaman cards, so I do wonder if there's enough support to run the Nagas in DK. I doubt it, but yeah, this is relatively weak. I'm gonna say this is 1 out of 5 stars. We get Siren Song, get 2 random spells from spell schools you haven't cast this game. You probably played this as a 1-of in a Highlander, Shaman, or into your Cabaret deck. I think it's going to be pretty strong. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Matching outfits, transform a minion into a random one that costs 1 more than summon a copy of it. So pretty powerful effect, albeit random, and that's my only complaint with it. I will give it a 2 out of 5. But this might be very, very strong in DK. I'm unsure. Multimental, 3 for a 3/8 taunt that is permanently frozen. Decks like Cabaret, I don't think that archetype will need to be dealing damage early in the game. And I think this is just a solid card to put on the board and buy you some time. I think it's going to be pretty good, a lot better than people think. It's a 4 out of 5 in my book. Especially, you can imagine playing this in Death Knight as well, right? Because it's, there's that frozen synergy. So, Malted Magma, this is the first drink. So, this is a 2 mana fire spell that deals 1 damage. And then once you can use it 3 times. Very similar to like a Barrel of Monkeys in that regard. 1 damage is pretty weak, but this card will see play. You'll probably see play in Nature Shaman and probably as a 1-of in some other control Shaman lists. That said, I think it's relatively weak, so I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. So we don't have the Demon Hunter, but we'll just move on to the next class, which is Warlock, and Warlock is playable. Warlock can get Death Knight cards, so think about the Death Knight cards that were available and that synergy that may be there, okay? So the tourist here is the Summoner Dark Marrow, 4/4 for a 4/4 undead. Your Death Rattle is triggered twice after you play a Death Rattle minion and destroy it. So you got the mix of like Spirits in your Umbra as well as Rare River there. But I think that effect is kind of too slow here, especially at the cost of this body. I don't find that to be that effective. So I would rate this relatively low. I think this is one of the worst tourists. This is a 1 out of 5, just simply because so many other tourists are better. Party Planner Volna, 6 mana, 4/4, Battlecry. If you take an 8 damage on your turn, summon Orobos. This is going to be easy to achieve, but I don't think Orobos is good enough. 8 mana, taunt, Death Rattle, give a minion in your hand, summon Orobos. I just don't know if that does enough, man. I really don't know. We'll have to see, but I actually think it's pretty weak. That said, a 6 mana payoff for only 8 damage is pretty easy to achieve. So playing that early, well, might not be too bad, right? So I don't know. We'll have to see. Like if this card, if the payoff doesn't feel that strong, but it might be strong enough. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Curse Souvenir, Shadow Spell. Now this is a wild one. A lot of Pain Warlock support this set. You see the nice Zeddy. They really use Zeddy as the inspiration for the cards here, and I hope they continue to do that in the future, like using different guys who've like got an iconic look. You know, shout out to Zeddy, probably one of the most integral Hearthstone content creators ever in the history of the game. But give a minion +3/+3, and at the start of your turn, deal 3 damage to your hero. There you go. That's your iconic pain damage. This is just cheap, good card, 4 out of 5. This is really, really strong. Pain Lock. Announce Darkness, Shadow Spell. This is just like a revised version of Renounce the Darkness. I don't want to theory craft like what this could be. I'll let some smarter or more creative person figure that out. In my mind, this is a meme card at best, so 1 out of 5 stars. Spellfire Bonfire, deal 4 damage to a minion. If it dies, your next Death Rattle minion costs 3 less. Remember, Warlock has access to Death Knight cards, right? Is that what I said? Does it have? Yeah, it has access to Death Knight cards, so the Death Knight frozen card. So I don't know. I don't really know if the synergy exists there, if this is strong enough. I don't know. I don't know. This might feel pretty good, so I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Rogue can also play this, so we'll see. Like this is in essence make sure truly the kid 1 mana, right? Health Drink. This is a 3 mana. This is the potion for Warlock. Lifesteal, deal 3 damage to a minion. This is very strong. I think this will be playable in both Rogue and Warlock. Good card, 4 out of 5 stars. Nothing much to say about it. This is just good. Sacrificial Imp, 3 for a 1/6 body. Death Rattle. If it's your turn, summon a 6/6 imp with taunt. So 2 things about this card. It's a demon, so it makes some demon packages worse. The Death Rattle only activates if you get it to die on your turn. But this puts up an interesting kind of predicament for your opponents. If your opponents don't have enough damage on the board to kill it, then you're going to be able to trade out on your turn, or they won't even attack into it to begin with. So I do think that leaves an interesting mechanic, but overall, I think the card is relatively weak. So for me, it's 1 out of 5 stars. Eat the Imp, destroy a friendly minion to draw 3 cards. Drawing cards is great. Drawing cards for very little mana is great. This is a 5 out of 5 card. Like if you play the Rogue Tourist to get Warlock, you're going to play that there. If you play any Warlock deck, you're going to play it there. Very, very strong card. 5 out of 5. Fearless Flame Juggler, 2 mana for a 1/1, but the battle cry is getting stats equal to the damage your hero has taken this turn. I think that's absurd. This is a 4 out of 5 card. You'll probably see a lot of play in Standard. Party Fiend, battle cry, summon 2 1/1 Fell Beast, deal 3 damage to your hero. More Pain Lock support. Absurd. 3 mana for 1/1. The power creep has just gotten to ridiculous limits. Very, very strong. 5 out of 5 card. So that is Warlock. Remember, Warlock cards are playable in Rogue. So I think we'll take a look at Rogue next. And here is Maestra, the Masked Merchant. She gives you access to Warlock cards, and her battle cry is to discover a hero card from the past. that means, oh, and by the way, the signature is awesome. You got the Jiraxis mask plus the Zul'jin mask. Very cool. But, you know, she can give you Guff, she can give you Kurtrus, Deathstalker, Rexar, like, looks like mostly anything. Like, Jaina, you know, like that is amazing. She can give you everything except, you know, the rogue heroes, right? And there's a lot to say about this card in terms of like meme ability and cool moments, right? Because you can imagine playing this, then playing another hero from another class, and then playing Tess, and then replaying all your rogue cards. Because at that point in the game, you no longer will be a rogue. So Tess will play back all the cards that are not whatever your class is, right? So, you know, you'll end up playing all the rogue cards. I think that's cool, but I think this is meme potential. Remember, this is a 6 for a 6/5 body that does nothing. On the turn it comes into play, there is no extra effect. So you're just putting up the minion, and then the next turn, or, you know, some subsequent turn later, not only do you have to survive, but you have to play the other hero card. So I would say that's relatively slow, but that could be relatively strong. I am definitely going to play it. I like the flavor of this card. I think it's really cool. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Treasure Hunter Eudora, it's a pirate, 6 mana for a 4/5, so understated body, battle cry, you go on a side quest to discover amazing loot, and you play 3 cards from other classes to complete it. To complete it, and this is the side art if you're a furry ad. There are a lot of cards in the card pool, like treasures and stuff. Some are good, some are bad, some are expensive, some are cheap. You know, this card is just so RNG and random to me. I just don't think it's reliable. I'm going to give this card 1 out of 5, but, you know, if someone breaks this card, I wouldn't be surprised. Snatch and Grab. By the way, remember Paladin has access to rogue cards. 8 mana, destroy 2 random enemy minions, cost 1 less each for each card you played from another class. So, gosh, I don't know. I think it's okay. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. It still feels pretty expensive to me. I don't know if there's a Burgle rogue that's fast enough to use this. And even though a lot of rogue cards are good for Paladin, I don't see Paladin playing this. Swarthy Swordshiner, 3 mana for a 3/3 pirate whose battle cry is to set attack and durability of your weapon to 3. This is a 5/5 card. Okay, this card is broken. In Rogue, you can imagine doing something like Quick Pick, right? Playing this on turn 2, attacking, then playing this guy on turn 3, and then attacking with your Quick Pick again, and having 2 more charges of Quick Pick. That's wild. In Paladin, you can imagine using this weapon a couple times, and then playing the Swordfinder to get it again, and maybe the Swordfinder is buff, and using it a few more times. That's wild as well. You can imagine using it on a shovel, but I don't know if you would do that. You can imagine buffing up your Cutlass there. The water cannon, like there are definitely a lot of ways to use a Sword Shiner. It is going to be a good card. It is a 5/5 card for sure. Conniving Combat, 4 mana, 4/4 battle cry. Replay the last card from you play from another class. It is a pirate, but its stats are just too mediocre, and honestly, it's just too random. 1 out of 5 stars. Knick-Knack Shack, 3 mana location, 4 durability. Draw a card. If you play it this turn, reopen this. Don't think it'll be strong in Paladin. I do think someone will find a way to make it very good in Rogue in Standard. So I'd give it like a 4 or 5 in Standard. And it'll be absolutely bonkers and a staple in Miracle Rogue in Wild. 5/5 card. Gonna be broken. Extremely strong card. Metal Detected, 3 mana, 2/2 weapon. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, get a coin. Very weak. 1 out of 5 stars. Couple reasons. Number 1, cost is too expensive. Number 2, the attack is too low. Just not worth it. Although, if you were going to play it, you'd probably be playing it in some type of Wishing Well rogue kind of variant or something. Sea Shill, Pirate, 3 mana, 3/2. Battle cry, the next card you play from a non-1 class costs 2 less. Absolutely bonkers. Will be played in any Paladin deck that uses the Jurist card. So, absolutely bonkers card. This is a very, very strong card. 5 out of 5. Easily going to see play in some rogue decks. Going to see play in most Paladin decks that use a Jurist. Absolutely bonkers. Crazy card. O Manager, 2 mana spell, deal 2 damage, combo, get a coin. Can go face, nothing much to say about it. Pretty basic card. I'll give it a 2 out of 5, but I think it'll see a lot of play. Petty Theft, 2 mana, get 2 random 1-cost spells from other classes. I don't know how much this will see play, although I can see synergy with Lynessa, the Sun Sapper. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5 for now. So that is Rogue for now. Remember, Rogue cards can be played by Paladin, so we might as well jump into Paladin and take a look at that. Sun Sapper, Lynessa, 5 mana, 2/6 minion, gives you access to the Rogue cards. Your spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. So you can see the synergy here with the card like that Rogue card that we looked at. You'll be able to play these smaller effects for cheaper. It's got this cool little artwork there. Kind of dig it. Pretty modest card, but I think the body is weak, and the effect, I don't know. It's hard to say how strong the effect was. That effect can be very strong, right? But you can imagine this with like something like Holy Glow Sticks or something. That's kind of wild, right? Or even a heal or something, or even a potion like a Divine Brew or Life-Saving Aura Potion, or even something like the cards we'll talk about. It could be strong, but the mana cost I think is prohibitive. So I would say 2 out of 5. Sandcastle, which is basically a play on words, right? It's Sandcastle, similar to how Mesa Dune. It was a play on Mesa and Dune, right? So 5 mana, 3/8 rush elemental that turns into a location. So you can see right here, it turns into a location that has durability equal to its health. Well, usually it's 8, and it gives a friendly minion attack equal to its attack, right? And rush. So if you hand buff this, you'll be giving a minion more attack and rush. It's an insane card. Great flavor. Just everything about this card is good. 5 out of 5. Gonna be powerful. Sea Shanty, 10 mana spell, summon 3/5/5 pirates, cost 1 less for each spell you've cast on characters this game. This says nothing about having to be in your hand in order to discount. So there will be a different type of, not hand buff rogue, but like a buff rogue or whatever you want to call it, dude pow, that will see this as a top end, and it's going to be pretty strong, especially when we talk about the next card, which is Service Ace. You can see Zeddy in all his glory there with the nice little quick drives and the arm sleeves, and 3/3 man, 3/3 for a 3/3 minion. After this minion gains attack, reduce the cost of the highest card in your hand by 1. So you can see how by buffing this when you play it, and if you have Sea Shanty in your hand, you get double discounts on buffs on Sea Shanty. Couple of different ways to make this card just absolutely bonkers. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, but I think it'll be a 5 out of 5 card, to be honest. It's gonna be, you know what? We'll give it out a 4 out of 5. It's strong, but I don't think it'll be broken. Lifeguard. This card, however, will be broken. As a reminder, Mage gets access to Paladin cards from this set, and Lifeguard, in my opinion, is one of the best cards revealed. This is a 5 out of 5 card, and I'll explain it for a number of reasons. First off, the stats are fair for the cost. 9 total in stats is about where you want to be, even though that this is pretty low on attack. It has a lot of defense at 4 mana. Gives you taunt, and the battle cry is the next spell you cast has lifesteal. So this thing will eat up about 7 attack. And at turn 4, that's a lot. Now, when you think about spells that have damage, Paladin has Consecrate, Holy Glow Sticks. He has a number of spells. But Mage has a ton of spells. Blizzard, Flame Strike, right? Like, the cheaper Master Mode. But there are a number of spells, and it heals, which is something that Mage doesn't have a lot of access to. This card is absolutely bonkers. It's broken. 5 out of 5 card. You're going to see it played a lot. Divine Brew. This is the drink for Pallies. Give a character Divine Shield. If it already had one, give it +1 attack. This is going to be good in this deck, right? Especially in combination with a Service Ace. But the good thing about this is also the drinks are holy. Wait, are the drinks holy? Yeah, they're holy, right? Yeah, all the drinks are holy. So this will have a lot of synergy with Flickering Lightbot, which is not talked about, but that's a Gigantify 3/3 minion that can be discounted to 0. And I think there's great synergy there. So look for that deck list to come out later. Going to be quite a strong card, especially when we talk about Mage's Tourist. Life-saving aura, very similar to the drink, although you only get one a turn, and this is an aura. It is a holy aura. I do think it is relatively weak and relatively slow. It'll be 2 out of 5 stars, but it is a cool card. Power Spike, I feel this is weak. It's a holy spell, deal 4 damage, give a random friendly minion with 4/4. I think it's just too expensive, in my opinion. It's just a weak Blessing of Kings, right? Like, and you're paying half more for the cost of Blessing of Kings for 4 damage or something. But that just doesn't feel strong enough, so 1 out of 5 in my opinion. But you do get one of the coolest signatures, and hopefully this is something that's just given for free. Grill Master, this is also a 5 out of 5 card. 4 mana for a 3/4. The battle cry is draw your lowest cost card. In most instances, this is going to be moot. There's going to be like no real tutoring ability for that. But, you know, I could see some situations, especially with Mage, where drawing your lowest cost card could be beneficial. But the Death Rattle drawing your highest cost card will be very, very beneficial. Paladin, you can imagine Reno Paladin, or like if you're playing Wild, maybe drawing Shrivala in some way. I don't even know why you would do that, but you know, whatever. Like the tutoring for high cost cards is usually pretty effective. And I want to say, especially with Mage, when you have cards like Sunset Valley or Galactic Projection Orb in the top end, there are definitely ways to kind of exploit the ability to put those cards in your hat. So because of that, I will give this a 5 out of 5. The body is weak. It's not the strongest body for 4 mana. This is like a 3 cost card stat line, but the effects are too strong. Volleyball, this is a 1 out of 5 star card. I don't see why you would use this over any other weapon that's currently available. Seems pretty weak. So that is Paladin. Let's talk about Mage. Mage gets access to Paladin cards from the expansion if you play Rayla, the Sand Sculptor. You can see her signature cards right here. Not as strong as the main art, in my opinion. 4 mana, 2/5. After you cast a spell, summon a random 2-cost minion and give it Divine Shield. So this is like a power crept Vex Girl. The stat line leaves much to be desired. It's pretty weak. But you can see that if you're using a bunch of the cheap spells like the lotions, the 1/1 buffs, or the drinks or whatnot, or you can fill out your board relatively quickly. While that effect, you know, may or may not be that strong, I would say this card's a 2 out of 5 star card. The fact that you get access to those other Paladin cards, you know, makes this a must-have for any big spell Mage type of player. King Tide, 4 mana, 4/4, battle cry, both players' spells cost 5 until the end of your next turn. Absolutely very, very strong. Okay, I just want to say that this is good in the early game because you can play this on Temple and force your opponent to play more creatures on the board and kind of block them out from playing their cheat spells. And, you know, if you play it early in the game, that means on your subsequent turn, you'll be able to cheat out, you know, potentially like a 10 mana spell from your hat. That's nice. In the late game, that's even stronger because, like, imagine turn 9, you play this, then you play a spell for 5 mana, and then the next turn you play 2, like, 10 mana spells or a 9 mana spell and a 10 mana spell on that subsequent turn. And those are really, really big tempo swings. I find that to be relatively strong. We'll have to see, but there are a lot of cards to benefit off of this ability, so I would say that this is a 5 out of 5 card. Tsunami, this is one of the cards that, you know, make big spell Mage really good. 8 mana, summon 3/3, 6 water elementals that freeze. They attack random enemies, and it's a frost card, which means that you can tutor this with watercolor artists. That makes it pretty incredible in my book. I like this. I'll show you a deck in a couple videos utilizing a watercolor artist. And the art for this is pretty awesome for the signature. Hopefully we get that as a free reward. That's a 4 out of 5 card. Go with the flow, 1 mana, choose a minion. If it's enemy, freeze it. If it's friendly, give it spell damage. Obviously, that's a powerful, +1 spell damage is powerful for 1 mana. In Standard, I don't think that will see a lot of play, though. 1 out of 5 in Standard, although I do think the cost of the effect is fair. Under the Sea, draw different spells, summon a random minion of the spell's cost. I would say that this is akin to something like Fireland's Portal, where you deal direct damage and we summon a big minion. Here, you get potentially bigger minions, albeit randomly. But I do think this will see some play in like spell mage, right? Like being able to cheat out big spells, or get them to your hand, at least tutor them to your hand for your King Tide, might be very beneficial. But I'll go ahead and give this a 3 out of 5. Surfilopod, this is a beast. Might be stronger in Druid, 5 mana, 5/6, so great stat line. Battlecry, the next card spell you draw is cast when drawn. I think that plays very well to Druid's spell pool, because you have stuff like, what is that card called? Wild Growth, so I do think that plays better towards that, but this may see play in Mage decks. The only issue is that sometimes many Mage large spells are situational, so I don't know how often when you play that. I'll give this a 3 out of 5. Rising Waves, this is another card that I think will see more play in Druid. Deal 2 damage to all minions. If none die, deal 2 more. Pretty cool card. Probably sees a lot of play in Druid. 4 out of 5. Maroon Dark Mage, 3 for a 3/3. Your first spell, each turn costs 2 less. I think this fits with a tempo deck that we don't have that exists for Mage. And I think that this with like something like Dark Moon Magician could be a very cool and novel idea, but I don't think it'll ever be developed, so 2 out of 5. Tide Pools, discover a spell that costs 3 or less. After you cast a spell, reopen this. I think this is a relatively strong location, and it'll only get stronger towards the end of the game. I think it sees play, but there's nothing really special to write home about here. This is 2 out of 5 for me. And then Seabreeze Chalice, the drink for Mage. Deal 2 damage randomly, split among enemies. You get 3 uses out of this, 1 mana each use. So just a slightly weaker Arcane Missiles that's recastable. Obviously, this is going to be good, especially with the Tourist, right? Because, you'll be able to play the Tourist and a couple of these and get a couple of minions and maybe switch the tempo on the game. Pretty interesting. I don't know how strong it'll be. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. And I believe we have covered most of the classes. So we talked about Death Knight, we talked about Mage, Paladin, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock. So we did cover all of the classes that are currently released. I ask that you continue to follow the channel and let me know what decks and ideas you have that are interesting. I've already made 6 decks. As the other classes are spilled, I'll have deck lists for all of those, and I'll make a video talking about all of that. But, stay tuned and have fun with the new expansion when it comes out. See you next time.